Hello and welcome to another episode, the fifth episode of Killing the Boredom, a podcast where I talk about all forms of media, entertainment and art in the hopes that you find something that you normally wouldn't check out and you decide to check it out and you like it. Because I feel like art is something that should be shared. It's a very beautiful thing that I think we should talk about. I love talking about it, so that's why I'm talking about it with you guys. So without any further ado and any more of my rambling, let's get straight into it. The first thing on the list to talk about today, which I've checked out over the past week, is Denzel Curry's album ZUU from 2019. This is fresh off the heels of his 2018 record, Taboo, which I talked about last week. I said that I really enjoyed Taboo. It tackled a lot of themes of, a lot of dark themes about Denzel Curry's paranoia or his own personal struggles with loss, grief, as well as his thoughts on certain political and social issues. And I really liked this album. I loved the energy that Denzel brought to a lot of his raps. I loved the beats, the production was absolutely insane. I loved the cohesiveness of the album. Overall, I thought it was a really good record. I'd heard a few Denzel Curry songs in the past, but which, I had enjoyed, obviously Ultimate. I was familiar with Cloud Cobain and Black Metal Terrorist, but listening to this album in full, I was very pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed it. So going into this album, I was pretty optimistic, obviously having just listened to an album that I really enjoyed by Curry. However, I was also aware that a lot of people said Taboo was Denzel's best record and that ZUU, while still good, was not as good. So I went in optimistic but cautiously optimistic. And I was pleasantly surprised. I really loved this album. I think I probably liked it a bit more than Taboo. And as well, I said, in my previous episode last week, I said, while I liked Taboo and I liked the themes that it was tackling, I didn't think it was... I've heard there are so many movies and albums and just art in general. There are so many, there are so many different forms of art which have tackled these ideas of depression or grief or paranoia. So while Denzel Curry, the way he did it was still very good and I really appreciated the effort, what I enjoyed about ZUU, which I can't say the same for about Taboo, is that it was a bit more fresh. It was a bit more of a unique idea. So ZUU is an exploration sort of Curry's childhood and where he was brought up in Miami, Florida. And it talks about, in it, Curry raps about how he had to act a certain way or how he had to do certain things to break out the mold of what happens to most people in that area. So he talks a lot about crime and he talks about how he had to do different things. He had to learn the rap to get out of that place. And this album doesn't talk about Miami in a bad way at all, but it does talk about how a lot of people tend to go down the same routes that aren't that good for their lives, whereas Denzel decided that he didn't want to do that. So the album is an exploration of his youth, not his youth, but how he had to grow up and what he had to do to, become the rapper he is today, as well as sort of exploring and being kind of an ode to where he was brought up in Miami, Florida. So, I'm sorry if I wasn't explaining that too well, but yeah, so the album is about his city, his upbringing, and yeah, I thought that was just a fresher idea than what Taboo was tackling. And I thought that, like Taboo, this album had great lyricism by Curry. The production was absolutely insane. And the energy in it is great throughout. So some of the highlights for me personally, the song Ricky, which most of you are pretty familiar with. It's the most popular song off ZUU. It talks about... Denzel's talking about lessons that he got from his father and his mother, and how he took those with him as he was growing up and becoming, coming into fame and success. That's one of the better songs on the album. Birds as well, featuring Rick Ross. On that note with features, it was cool as well how all the features, I believe, are from Florida. So that kind of also adds to the whole message of the album. And then on top of that, obviously the album cover work. He's in I think it's a Miami Dolphins. I'm not quite sure. I'm not familiar with American sports teams, but I'm pretty sure it's the Miami Dolphins. He's in some of their sports gear. Sorry for the sidetrack. So yeah, Birds featuring Rick Ross. I thought this was a fantastic song. The beat was so aggressive. I just loved it. The moment I heard this song, the moment the beat like hits, I was like, oh, that's so fucking cool. Denzel kills it. Rick Ross kills it. Just a great song, an absolute fucking banger. On top of that, ZUU, the opening track is really enjoyable, I thought, as well. Banger. As I've already said, Ricky, banger. Shake 88, I thought was a really enjoyable song as well. I really like the pitched up vocals. It kind of reminded me of... I don't... It's probably not cool to compare Denzel Curry to Epic Rap Battles of History, but the old Epic Rap Battles of History video that had Dr. Seuss, and he paints Thing 1 and Thing 2, and they're pitched up vocals. That's what this song reminded me of. But I thought it was really cool. It really complemented, Denzel's deeper voice tone. And I think it's just a fun song in general. And then the final song, PAT, it very much reminded me of Black Metal Terrorist. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if in this song, Denzel Curry is taking up the same persona of the Black Metal Terrorist. Aggressive beat. Denzel kills it. Probably his first verse on this song is probably his best verse of the album. One of my favorite Denzel verses actually ever. Absolutely fantastic song. Something I want to say about this album is the aesthetic it captures with the production is very cool. So I'll try to explain it as best as I can, but the production almost feels like it kind of gives this aesthetic of someone driving through a car and freestyling over beats freestyling over songs that are played over the radio. And I don't know if that's intentional. I get the feeling it is, because a lot of the skits, or at least like one of the skits is these guys sitting in the car and they change the radio to put on a new Denzel song. And then another skit, it's these guys on the phone to someone. But when I first heard that skit, I kind of imagined them in a car just because of the proximity of them and I don't know. The first time I heard it, I had the image of them in a car. And so what I mean by the production, that it kind of has this aesthetic as if it's like so obviously in the songs you have Denzel rapping and there's the background production. But the production, it usually will have a sample, it gets repeated, and the sample's a vocal sample, but you can't really hear the lyrics a lot of the time. And it sounds distorted, almost like as if you're playing the radio and you've kind of got it, but there's a bit of like white noise coming in as well, like a bit of static. So you can still hear kind of what the sound is, but it's very distorted. And it kind of sounds like that is the background beat of the songs while Denzel's rapping over it. If you listen to the album, you might get what I'm saying. I could be wrong. I feel like it is intentional, but as I said, I could be wrong. That sort of production is definitely a lot more prominent in the second part of the album, which is also where there's a lot more interludes and skits. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like that's intentional, but as I said, I could be wrong. I don't know. But yeah, it's a real, as I said, so the production's insane. Fucking FNZ, the producers of basically most of this album and of most of Taboo, are so fucking underrated. I never ever see them ever brought up in conversations for the best current rap producers. I never see FNZ ever get any fucking love, and they are great. Their production on ZUU was fantastic. Their production on Taboo was fantastic. They've done some awesome production for A$AP Rocky. And then they've done like additional production on songs like Wash Us in the Blood from last year, which was probably my favorite song of the year. It was a fucking unreal song. I know they weren't the main producers on that song, but I mean, they've been around for maybe 10-ish years, and their production is fantastic. I can't wait. As excited as I am to see where Denzel goes, I can't wait to see what F&Z do in the future, whether that be with Denzel Curry or other artists. I think they are just fucking fantastic. They have a very unique type of production. Yeah, anyway, that's my little rant on F&Z being underrated as hell. They're great. As I said, the production's great. All the songs on this album are quite short, like they are on Taboo, which I liked. Very simple song structure, chorus, verse. And it's a short album. It's less than 30 minutes, which makes it significantly shorter than Taboo. Very compact. There's a few skits in it, which I thought were good. The Yo skit was like quite funny, quite enjoyable. And I feel like in this album as well, there's a few songs that are a bit more fun than in Taboo. Taboo was very dark, and while this does have its share of songs that have darker lyrics, such as Speedboat, there are also a lot of songs that are a bit more playful, such as Shake 88 and Wish. It's a much more playful album than Taboo, I thought. And what's crazy about it, I've heard like Denzel Curry wrote this album in a month, which is unreal. Like, he's such a great, his lyrics are so great. I feel like he will honestly go down like as one of the better rappers of definitely his generation. I really rate him. I think he's fucking phenomenal. And I see him get a lot of praise, but I don't think it's enough. And I don't think he gets appreciated enough as a lyricist. But yeah, I mean, check this album out. As I said, it's very short. There's not any skips on this album, I didn't think, for me, apart from like maybe the if you don't like interludes or skits, they're probably skips, but every song is pretty short. There's a lot of hard-hitting beats. Again, Denzel just brings so much energy. And yeah, it's a great album. I think probably better than Taboo. I think it's probably more accessible than Taboo as well, because Taboo had I think there were some skips on Taboo. I can't even remember the name of the song off the top of my head. It's in part 1. It's a song before Sumo. But yeah, that was a skip. I thought Vengeance was a skip in Taboo. I don't think this album has any skips. I think this is a great album. And as I said, more accessible. It's lighter, but it's still conceptual. It's still an album that I found through multiple listens that I enjoyed it more and more. It wasn't like just a simple listen, like a bit of a throwaway. It still had depth to it. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this album. I really enjoyed it. Production is great. Lyrics are great. Short and sweet. And yeah, it's great. So, leading on to that, the next album I want to talk to is another Denzel Curry album, Unlocked. This one came out last year, 2020. I think it was a surprise drop. Very short album, only 17 minutes long. I think 8 tracks, 2 which aren't really tracks. They're kind of just chopped and screwed snippets of Denzel Curry rapping in other tracks, as well as samples. Yeah, this album, I didn't dislike it, but I didn't like it as much as I liked ZUU and Taboo. I feel like had I listened to this album before I'd listened to those two, I wouldn't have talked about it on this podcast, because I want this podcast to be somewhere where I just talk about albums that I love and I want you to check out. But I feel like because I just talked about Denzel Curry's 2 albums previous to this, and also because I said last week I would talk about this album, that I'm going to have to talk about it anyway. But, I mean, I think it's still worth checking out. Like, it's still a decent effort. Like, it's not a bad album. I think it's probably... I think a lot of people like this album. It just wasn't really for me. It was very different to what Denzel usually makes. there wasn't as much. It wasn't like trap bangers. It was a bit more experimental, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. If anything, it goes to show how versatile Denzel is. And there are definitely still some bangers on the Layup is a fucking banger and a half. The Kenny Beats production, I think, just probably didn't interest me as much as like the production of who he usually pairs with F and Z. I feel like the F and Z production mixed with the Curry delivery and lyrics is such a great combination. And I feel like I enjoy that much more than I enjoy this collab with Kenny Beats. But in saying that, I still did enjoy a lot of parts of this album. Like I've saved a couple of this, more than a couple. I've saved, I think, 4 songs from the album. I still enjoyed a lot of it, and I want to still talk up what I enjoyed about it because I still think it's worth listening to, especially because it's so short. Like if you don't like it, it's not that much time that you're losing. If you like it a little bit, I think 17 minutes is, if you listen to 17 minutes of music and you find at least one song that you like, I think that's a pretty good return. And I found a few songs from this album that I liked. So yeah, I'm probably leading into it a little bit too negative. I don't think it's a bad album. I think it's just not as good as his last 2 albums, which I both thought were great. But yeah, so I thought the Kenny Beats production was, while probably not my cup of tea, it was still interesting. It was kind of like psychedelic. It was very weird. He uses weird kind of drum patterns and weird background beats. Kind of hard to explain, but it all matches this sort of aesthetic. It kind of gives you this this sort of aesthetic in your head of like a cartoon, I guess, which makes sense because there was a cartoon short film that came along with the album that you can watch on YouTube, which I actually recommend. I think it's very charming. I think it's very cute. They use all these different animation styles for each of the different songs. It's a very cool way to experience the album, I think. What I also really liked about this album was I thought it was cool how there was so much shifting of the tones of Denzel Curry's voice. So like it would get shifted up, or it'd become higher or it'd become lower. And I thought that gave a really interesting texture to a lot of the songs. Especially songs like Layup. I thought that the toning down of his voice to make it a really deep sound, it just made it a bit more hype. And I thought it was really cool when he would have a high pitched voice and then he would contrast it with a low pitched voice over these kind of weird psychedelic kind of beats. It was cool. Like it was definitely a different listening experience for me, something I hadn't experienced before. I think Layup is a great song. Take It Back is a great song. Die is a great song. Every other song there, I think, is pretty kind of mid. I didn't enjoy as much. Cosmic is pretty good, I guess. But yeah, I think it's worth listening to just for the aesthetic and the, if anything, the animated movie is really cool. I still think Denzel has some really cool delivery, has some great delivery as always, has some really cool lyrics. And there's still some songs that have a lot of energy. And I think it's a really good display of Denzel's versatility. So, I mean, I guess I should have learnt my lesson from last week to not talk about what I'm going to be doing in the future. But after listening to these 3 albums, I really want to go back and listen to Curry's older stuff. Even though it's not that old, it's like 4 years old. I'm going to listen to Imperial this coming week. And then maybe some of his EP. His EP is like 13. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about these albums. Oh, I listened to because Slow Tie's new album is coming out, I listened to his collab with Denzel, Psycho. That song is a fucking banger too. I highly recommend that, especially if you love the more braggadocious, aggressive Curry songs. Definitely check out Psycho. He has a fucking great verse in it, a great hook. So much energy, just raw energy. I love the energy Curry gives. And I can't wait to see what he does next. I think his next album is coming out this year. I'm hoping for some more F&C production. I'm seriously interested to wonder conceptually what he's going to be going for. Considering, I mean, like Taboo and ZUU having such different concepts, I'm very intrigued to see if this album is as conceptual as them and what concept he's sort of going at, or whether it's a bit more fun like Unlocked. I guess that's another thing about Unlocked. It's a much more casual listen than Taboo or ZUU, in my opinion. While it's still cohesive thematically and sonically, it's just a bit more fun. It's not as serious. The songs aren't dark like in Taboo and even some of ZUU. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about Denzel. Can't wait to see what he does next. Actually, I do I do want to say one more thing about Denzel. I am very fucking upset that we will never see a Denzel x Kanye song. That is really fucking disappointing. I was thinking about that earlier today. I was thinking about that after I saw that F&Z had production in Wash Us in the Blood, which, as I said earlier, probably my favorite song of last year and one of my favorite Kanye songs. I think it's seriously underrated. Man, could you imagine how fucking good a Denzel Curry verse on that song would have been? I mean, you still have like that short Travis Scott verse. You have Kanye's verses, but then in the middle of it, imagine a Denzel Curry verse. And he could fucking do it. Like, he's rapped about this stuff in Sirens. And like, he killed it in Sirens. Imagine like a verse like that in Wash Us in the Blood. It would have been fucking all time. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen because, you know, Kanye recently with his albums, he's been having less and less features. You know, I don't think we're going to get a Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy or Pablo type of album again, in the sense that we're going to get an album just full of features where everyone's fucking working on it. I really would love to see a Kanye x Denzel song or just anything, even if like Kanye featured on a Denzel album. I feel like that would be fucking just epic. It would just be such an energetic song, and I feel like Denzel could really bring back some of that fucking Kanye energy that has been not missing, but not as hasn't been as much in recently. You know, he's been a bit hit or miss recently. You know, Nah 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 by Kanye was trash, but you know, Wash Us in the Blood was great. And I thought Jesus is King had its fair share of really good songs, but also its fair share of not as good songs. But yeah, I would love to see them collab, whether that be on a Kanye project or a Denzel Curry project. But all we can do is cross our fingers and pray that it happens. I don't think it will, but, you know, music gods, if you're listening, Denzel x Kanye, please. Please. Anyway, yeah, so enough of Denzel. And the last thing I want to talk about today is season 2 of a show I started talking about last week, The Expanse. So if you haven't watched The Expanse, since I'm talking about season 2, I will say spoilers for season 1, because, I mean, just obviously it'd be like if I'm saying, you know, I'm going to talk about the middle of a movie, it's going to give spoilers for the beginning. So yeah, but I won't give spoilers for season 2, only season 1. But I'll still give my thoughts on season 2 in general. So The Expanse season 2, I thought improved on The Expanse season 1 in every single area. The story was much better. The characters had room to grow. They had room to evolve. Whereas I thought in season 1, the characters weren't that interesting. They were a bit one-dimensional. They've had a lot of room now to grow and really develop. I also thought, I think I said CGI. It was a bit more exciting. I think, yeah, it just improved in every aspect for me. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed not having it was less confusing. I thought the whole conspiracy thing in season 1 was pretty confusing. There's not as much of focus on that. There's still a conspiracy, but it's not fucking Joe Miller, played by Thomas Jane, going from point A to point B to point C, talking to this person and that person and that person, trying to get hints. That storyline has wrapped up, and now the conspiracy is a lot more political. It's interplanetary, and it's interesting because that's when I started watching The Expanse. That was what I was really interested in. I was interested in the idea of Earth and Mars and the belt having these different political systems and kind of being at odds with each other because of resources and stuff like that, and just different ideas, and I felt like they really expanded on that in this season, especially like the cultures of Earth and Mars and how they were different, because it was only kind of really touched on in the first season, but in the second season it's really expanded, where we see that Earth reflects a certain political system, whereas Mars reflects another political system. And I thought that was interesting. I thought the expansion of the lore was great. It really gave a lot of depth to this world, which I thought was already very captivating. And as I said, it got rid of not got rid of, but the storyline with Miller searching for Julie Mao wrapped up, and now we're into a different story. The stakes are higher. After season 1, tens of thousands of people have died at Eros after being tested on with the proto-molecule. And so in this season, we get to see the ramifications of that, the political actions that the different planets take. And I love that. I love seeing the tension between Mars and Earth rise, and how they were responding to certain events within the solar system. And with that, we got to see a lot more of the solar system. We weren't just confined to the Rocinante series and Earth. We got to see parts of Mars. We got to go to some of the moons of Jupiter. There's strong, we got to see parts of Venus as well. There were lots. It explored much more of the solar system, which I really enjoyed. As I said, I enjoyed the evolution of the characters. There was an introduction of a few more characters, some which I did not like at the beginning, but grew to like, some which I liked from the very beginning. I don't think there was any characters that were introduced that I had any qualms with all the way through in particular. I'm really enjoying this show. I still think that some of the writing is a little bit clunky, but it's such a fun show. The characters are really, really likable. It's such a great cast. I think it's just a good show. It's just a good, enjoyable show. The CGI has improved tenfold this season, which really it just allows you to be more engaged with it, and a bit more. Sorry, I'm blanking on the word here. I thought some of the CGI in the previous season was a bit of an immersion breaker, but we didn't have that in this season. The CGI has improved a lot, which is good, because there's a lot of ship battles, and one in particular where the CGI, it really just, it makes it feel a lot more realistic, and it allows you to be more immersed in this TV show rather than realize that you're watching something that's computer generated. So I can only assume that the budget went up over the in between seasons. It's great. I really liked how a lot of the stories progressed. It was cool to see the characters evolve. Particularly Holden, I had some issues with him in the first season. I thought he was too idealist, but it was cool to see him evolve because of what he's experienced. And also, this season wasn't predictable. There were a lot of twists and turns, and a lot of characters made certain decisions that I was not expecting at all. And I thought there's still a lot of mystery. There's still a lot of loose ends, and I mean that in a good way, as in I didn't finish this season being like, okay, well, I kind of see where the next season's going. There were so many different storylines that hadn't been properly wrapped up that I was like, okay, there's so many, because it's so dynamic. The whole series is so dynamic because there's so many different plot lines going on at the same time, which are all interconnected in some way. And if one thing goes one way, all these other plot lines are going to fall, a certain way. But if it goes another way, they're all going to fall a different way. And I guess this can make the show confusing at times, but it also just makes it a lot more captivating because you don't know where it's going to go because there are so many variables in play. And yeah, and I guess that's kind of like because it's based on a book series, and in books you can get really in depth with it, and there's probably a lot more world building than say with a TV show. I could be wrong with that, but that's just that's just an assumption I'm making. I feel like because it's based on books, it allows for a more complex world to be built. And as I said, it can be a little confusing at sometimes, but season 2 is much less confusing than season 1. And I thought more enjoyable, and I thought it left a lot of mystery for season 3. I'm very excited for season 3. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I don't really know what else I want to say about season 2. There's the stakes are higher. Like there's a lot more, because I felt like for season 1 the stakes were not that high, but there's a lot of lives at stake now, and on top of that, we're much more attached to the characters. There's a lot of heartfelt moments as well in this series. Yeah, it's so improved on season 1. Sorry, I've said that a few times, but yeah, well worth watching. Yeah, and just if you haven't watched season 1 already, watch it. Watch season 2. I'm looking forward to talking about season 3. I'm probably not going to talk about it next week because I'm currently not able to watch a lot of TV just because of I'm away at the moment. So I'll probably review a lot of music next week because it's much easier for me to listen to music than watch TV at the moment. But the week after that, I'll talk about The Expanse season 3 and perhaps even season 4. But yeah, that's all I've got to talk about for the moment. Thank you once again for indulging me just ramble about shit. I really enjoy this. Again, as I say at the end of every episode, I'm new to this, so please give me any feedback that you can. I would love to hear it. I want to improve at this. I want to know what I can be doing better to make your listening experience more enjoyable. And yeah, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you guys next week. I hope you're doing all well. All right, thank you. Bye.